There are at least 3 ways to build most EDH decks.
I imagined that there was such a thing as a unicorn. I just drew a picture of a horse that could fly over rainbows and had a huge spike in its head.
Hey, is that Princess Unicorn? I thought they were all sold out. My horn can pierce the sky.
How does that happen? The king has sex with a unicorn? Man with a horn has sex with a royal horse?
Let's talk about the strong, fun, and mean ways that I would build Emiel, the Blessed. And the video starts right now. Special thanks to our Patreon supporters who power our channel. Check out our Patreon for monthly giveaways, exclusive content, and even a starring role in our fan fight series. Link in the description below. Hello and welcome to the day. Thank you for spending your time with us. Welcome back to another episode of Jake and Joel Are Magic. I am Joel. We're going to cover Emiel, the Unicorn Commander. But first, if you like the video by the end of it and you want to see more like it, hit that like button down there, hit that subscribe button. Let's go. Emiel the Blessed is from Jumpstart. 2 white, 2 other for a 4/4 legendary unicorn. 3 mana, exiles another target creature you control, then returns it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay either 1 green or 1 white. If you do, put a 1/1 counter on it. If it's a unicorn, put 2 1/1 counters on it. I see 3 ways to build this commander. We've got that first ability to pay 3 ad nauseum, as much as we possibly can, to exile another target creature you control and then return it to the battlefield. So Blink Tribal seems like a very strong base foundation for this deck. The fun way to build it, pretty obvious, Unicorn Tribal. And then the mean way to build it, we're going to take advantage of that first ability and we're going to try and go infinite as much as possible. Let's jump into these cards. With Emiel's Blink ability, you can do it at instant speed and you can do it ad nauseum, only limited by the amount of mana that you've got. So let's look at a group of creatures that I've picked out that I think really take advantage of that enters the battlefield, triggering again and again for Emiel. Starting with Angel of Grace. When Angel of Grace enters the battlefield until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life total to less than 1 reduces it to 1 instead. Let's stay alive forever as long as the win con on our opponent's side is trying to get our life total to 0. Angel of Grace is going to keep that from happening, and Emiel can just continue to blink this angel and keep our life total at 1. Craterhoof Behemoth. When it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. Once you have stuck a Craterhoof Behemoth, okay, paying 3 to get that creatures you control get trample and +X/+X until end of turn again and again and again and again sounds really good. That sounds like a way to win with creature attacking damage. Armada Worm. Here's a creature that creates 5/5 creatures when it enters the battlefield, and they have trample just to boot. Armada Worm definitely belongs in this deck and wants to be blinked by Emiel. Bramble Sovereign. Now this is a different way of looking at it. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, you may pay 2, so a green and 1. If you do, that creature's controller, us in this instance, creates a token that's a copy of that creature. So every time we blink for 3, if we have Bramble Sovereign on the battlefield, we pay 2 more, so now we're blinking for 5, and we're getting 2 of whatever we're blinking entering the battlefield at once. Looking back to Craterhoof Behemoth, ay. Are you serious? Bramble Sovereign definitely wants to be in this deck. Cavalier of Dawn. Here's an interesting one because when it enters the battlefield, it destroys any non-land permanent. Now, its controller gets a 3/3 golem, but whatever. Number 1, Emiel can block the 3/3 and survive, so we don't really care about it. We didn't really care about it in the first place, but there's nothing that is going to allow it to get through if Emiel's blinking the Cavalier of Dawn, which can also block the 3/3 golem. Then when it dies, you can return artifacts or enchantments from your graveyard to your hand, but we just want to keep blinking this Cavalier and dealing with troublesome permanents and having it destroy them every single time it comes into the battlefield. Woodfall Primus. Same thing except it doesn't hit creatures. And it's got Persist. Okay, so Persist with Emiel. Look at this. It doesn't enter the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it because it has no knowledge of its previous self. So Woodfall Primus enters the battlefield, comes into play, destroys a target non-creature permanent. We let it die. It comes back with a Persist counter. That's when we blink it. Suddenly, Woodfall Primus is just around forever and so hard to kill. Another note with the exile another target creature you control with Emiel's ability is that allows creatures to dodge targeted removal. So even if they target Woodfall Primus down, you blink it. It comes in with no persist counters. If they still somehow manage to kill it through a board wipe, something, it comes back in as persist. Persist is just, it's nasty, nasty with this commander. Twilight Shepherd's the same way. When it comes into play, return to your hand all cards that were put into your graveyard from play this turn. And it has persist. So the same thing as Woodfall Primus. You can blink it once it comes back from persist and remove the -1/-1 counter so that persist will trigger again. And you can just blink it as many times as you want. If your opponents are able to wipe your board somehow or destroy everything or get a lot of stuff into your graveyard from play at once, Twilight Shepherd has got your back, and Emiel can keep Twilight Shepherd alive. Rex Sage, just because it's an absolute house of a enters the battlefield creature, destroy an artifact or enchantment, blink that, it's cheap, it can be played early to control the board. Palace Jailer, this one is very interesting to me because when it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch, and when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until an opponent becomes the monarch. So, if you've got the mana, Palace Jailer can be blinked on the same turn that it enters the battlefield to exile multiple creatures, and then you just have to retain monarch status somehow, and you keep those creatures, but we can get multiple off the board, and then if we untap with it, even more creatures exiled, because our opponents have to get monarch, and we can just blink Palace Jailer because it doesn't send the creature back from exile, because we're still the monarch. It has nothing to do with Palace Jailer, the card itself, just checks to see if we are the monarch. There's a lot of very cool interactions with Emiel the Blessed. Fiend Hunter. Now this one doesn't work quite the same way. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature. When Fiend Hunter leaves the battlefield, return the exiled creature to the battlefield under its control. So, under its owner's control. So, Fiend Hunter, it does check to see if Fiend Hunter leaves. However, we can lock up one creature and change our minds about which creature we want locked up, as long as we've got Fiend Hunter and Emiel on the battlefield, and we can just blink Fiend Hunter to say, no, that creature now. No, I don't want that creature anymore. I don't want to deal with those. We're just going to take that solo creature. It's just a way to lock one creature out of the game, essentially, as long as you've got the blink. Now, Winding Canyons. I like that second ability on this because you can pay 2 and tap it until end of turn. You can play creature cards whenever you could play instants. So it doesn't directly interact, but it kind of does. If we can instant speed put Palace Jailer onto the battlefield and then blink it, we could get 2 creatures off of the battlefield as long as we've got 7, 8, 9 mana available. I think that in particular, Emiel likes creatures coming in at instant speed. I think Winding Canyons has a place in this deck. Sun Titan, everybody knows Sun Titan. We can return target permanents with CMC 3 or less to the battlefield when it enters the battlefield or attacks. Emiel loves enters the battlefield. As Avenger of Zendikar, this is entering 01 plant tokens for every land you control every time it enters the battlefield, and your plants grow as you drop lands. You're only playing green and white, so you're going to be playing a lot of ramp probably. You're going to need to, I would say. Some of these best enters the battlefield creatures are very expensive, as you've seen. Avenger of Zendikar, 7 mana. But you want a lot of lands entering the battlefield so that you can cast them. Now, we've looked at a lot of enters the battlefield creatures. Let's look at Cloudstone Curio because it definitely fits in with this strategy. Whenever another non-artifact permanent comes into play under your control, so we're thinking about creatures, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent type with it to its owner's hand. So every time you blink a creature, you also get to return a creature to an opponent's hand and just tempo the crap out of them. Cloudstone Curio lives in this deck, breathes in this deck, belongs in this deck. And also Aura Shards. It's the same kind of thing. You've got Emiel blinking creatures. They're re-entering the battlefield. When a creature enters the battlefield, you can destroy artifacts or enchantments. Aura Shards is nasty in this deck. Absolutely brutal. Look for your favorite creatures that have enters the battlefield abilities. That's what this deck wants. That's what Emiel wants to play with. I think that would be your best way to go for a very strong foundation with this deck. Let's swap over to the fun way to build, and that is Unicorn Tribal. There are 23 Commander legal green and white unicorns that can go into Emiel the Blessed Unicorn Tribal. I have a selection of them picked out that I want to go through in this video, and we'll start with Brightmare because it's got an enters the battlefield ability. It's a 2/3 for 3. When it enters the battlefield, tap up to 1 target creature, and you gain life equal to that creature's power. Like I said in the first part, blink this creature, you're tapping down creatures, you're gaining life, and when it does come into play and sticks, you can pay that 1 mana and put 2+1/+1 counters on it with Emiel's second ability. Good Fortune Unicorn is a 3-cost 2/2. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. This is just a good card for a creature-based deck. It doesn't even have to check for unicorns, but it itself is a unicorn, so you can pay that 1 extra mana and make it a 4/4 instead of a 2/2 and get extra value out of it. And then anything that enters after that gets a +1/+1 counter just from this creature, not counting Emiel's counters as well. Inspiring Unicorn is a 2/2 for 4 mana. Whenever it attacks, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So a Warcry Anthem kind of ability that's going to give your attacking line +1/+1 when you do push through. Loyal Unicorn is from the Commander sets, 4 mana for a 3/4 with Vigi. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to your creatures this turn. Other creatures you control gain vigilance. So everybody on your line gets to attack without tapping, and they're not going to take combat damage, so you don't have to worry about your line dying. Now, this gets negated, of course, by damage can't be prevented this turn kind of effects. However, Loyal Unicorn, in the absence of that effect, is a very, very good creature to have in a creature attacking deck. Noble Quarry is a 3-cost 1/1. All creatures able to block Noble Quarry or enchanted creature do so. So, if you attack with a whole line, everything has to block this one creature. And it can also be a bestow enchantment. So for 6 mana, it will become a creature enchantment. The enchanted creature gets +1/+1, and all creatures able to block it have to do that. So it's just another way for your attacking line to get through, and you don't have to worry about death except for that one creature, which is going to get aced. Prized Unicorn is another kind of that effect, 2/2 for 4. All creatures able to block Prized Unicorn do so. You can attack with impunity. Now, Wishmonger, I'm hesitant to put this one in here, but I do kind of like it because the art is funky and it's a cool ability. 4 mana for a 3/3. You can pay 2. Target creature gains protection from the color of its controller's choice until end of turn. So it's going to let your army attack through their line as long as you can give your creatures protection from whatever colors their creatures are. However, any player may play this ability. So they won't be able to block, but they will be able to get their creatures through as well for just 2 mana. So it's kind of a risk, but I think it's one that might be worth taking. Capuchin Unicorn is fantastic, 2 for a 1/2, pay 2, tap it, sack it, destroy an artifact or enchantment. This is a very good unicorn that has some utility value built into it, just like Ronam Unicorn, pay 2 for a 2/2, sack it, destroy target enchantment. Boom, there you go. Now, does Emiel wish that this was an ETB? Absolutely. However, we'll take utility on our tribal creatures as many times as we can get it. Captivating Unicorn, if you want to play some enchantments in your deck, which green and white, there's a lot of really good enchantments, you can take advantage of that by having a Constellation Unicorn. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. Boom, attacking. Go wide, tap your creatures down on your opponent's side, push your creatures through, deal some damage, get some damage through, win the game. And then Opaline Unicorn, I included this one just because it's a mana rock, essentially. Pay 3 for a 1/2 to tap it and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. I was talking about ramp in the first part. If that's your foundation and you've got some big creature payoffs that have big ETBs, and you have like maybe a unicorn sub-theme in here, Opaline Unicorn is an excellent inclusion in this deck just because it will allow you to add 1 mana of any color, so you do ramp a little bit, and you get the added benefit of being a unicorn in an Emiel the Blessed Unicorn deck. Now, bet you weren't expecting to see this card pop up. Princess Twilight Sparkle. This was a special card from a special small pack release set that Wizards made that was all My Little Pony. Princess Twilight Sparkle I included because if you do have a casual playgroup that doesn't mind, hey, I have a fun tribal unicorn deck, Princess Twilight Sparkle is a really good card to have as your commander. Now note, this card won't be able to go into Emiel. I'm assuming if you have a casual playgroup, they won't allow you to break the rules of commander. So you will need to have Princess Twilight Sparkle as your commander, and Emiel can be in the deck. But for 1 blue and 1 white, you get a 2/2 flyer that says other alicorns, horses, pegasi, ponies, and unicorns you control get +1/+1, and then you can pay 1 of each mana, each color. If you control Applejack, Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity, every pony wins the game. I don't know what any of that means, but there's an anthem on this card, and that's pretty cool. Let's jump over to the mean way that I think you could build Emiel the Blessed, and that is going infinite. There are a few different ways to go infinite with Emiel's pay 3 to blink a creature ability. I want to go over one that just requires having 2 different cards on the battlefield, and then we'll look at some payoffs that you could use that infinite mana for. Brood Monitor, when it comes into play, creates 3 1/1 Eldrazi Scion creature tokens that can sacrifice to add 1 mana. Now, if we've got something like Anointed Procession or any of the other effects that double tokens entering the battlefield, we've got 6 1/1s entering the battlefield that can be sacked for mana. So it comes into the battlefield, it creates 6, you pay 3, sack 3, put that 3 mana into Emiel's ability, blink Brood Monitor, we get 6, use 3, and we're leaving 3 mana that can be sacked from creatures over and over and over again. It's pretty simple to pull off. Brood Monitor is just an uncommon. Anointed Procession is a rare, and the other forms of this are more expensive, but it's a fairly simple way to get some infinite mana going that could be included in any version of this deck, or you can focus in on the infinite thing. Talking about payoffs in these colors, I think White Sun Zenith is an excellent payoff for this if you can get it going, because it is instant speed and it creates a ton of cats going wide. If you can do it at the end of your opponent's turn, casting White Sun Zenith with your infinite mana, then you're going to have an infinite amount of 2/2s to attack down all of your opponents at your next attack step, provided they can't instant speed wipe the board or make you sack attackers or anything like that. You can also use that infinite mana to put it into a Walking Ballista infinitely. As long as it resolves, then you have infinite damage that can come out of Walking Ballista at instant speed, so you can respond to anything that they try to do to Walking Ballista, as long as it's not like ending the turn or canceling the stack or anything crazy like that. As long as Ballista resolves, you've got an infinitely large machine gun, essentially, to ping down all of your opponents. And the other big payoff for infinite mana that you can play in these colors is Helix Pinnacle. Pay 1, it's got Shroud for an enchantment. Put X counters on Helix Pinnacle at the beginning of your upkeep. If there are 100 or more tower counters on Helix Pinnacle, you win the game. So do this at the end of your last opponent's step, right before it becomes your turn. Get it up. You don't even need infinite. You only need 100 mana. And when it checks for Helix Pinnacle being ready to go, you win the game. Now, there are some other ways to do this that aren't in Emiel's colors. This is very simple ways to do this. If you do want to combine Emiel with some of these cards in other decks, this won't work for an Emiel-led commanded deck, but they work really well together, and I just wanted to mention them because of these synergies. You cast Palinchron onto the battlefield. When it comes into play, you untap 7 lands, so you dump all 7 of that mana that you untapped back into your mana pool, use 3 of it, blink Palinchron, untap up to 7 again, and just do that ad nauseum. You'll get infinite mana with just this 2-card combo. You can also do it with Dockside Extortionist, as long as you've got artifacts on the other sides of the battlefield from you under your opponent's control. When it enters the battlefield, you're creating X treasure tokens. As long as there's at least 4 artifacts on the other side of the board, get your 4 tokens, blink it, get 4, blink it, get 4, blink it, get 4, every single time, sacrificing 3 of them to be the mana to pump back into Emiel. So if you've got any decks that are running green, red, and white, this would be an excellent way to 2-card combo into infinite mana to pump into some kind of X spell. Let me know how you would build Emiel the Blessed and what cards I missed. It's a cool commander. Jumpstart has really given us some cool new commanders, and I appreciate the set making these multicolored so that they do have more viability in EDH. If there's a commander you want me to build 3 ways, let me know down in the comments below. Other than that, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you want to support us further, we have a Patreon. Link is down in the description below for monthly giveaways, behind the scenes videos, early access to videos. Go check that out and see if you like it. And if you want to hang out with us, we stream on YouTube and on Twitch. Hit that notification bell down there so you know when we go live on YouTube. And go find us over on Twitch at Jake and Joel or Magic. I appreciate it. I'm tapped out. We'll catch you later.